Today, we are exposing the 6 Aussie chocolate brands that are effectively lying to your taste buds. You're not crazy. The chocolate you are buying at Coles and Woolworths today is fundamentally different from what you ate 10 years ago. And I'm not just talking about the size, though the shrinking is aggressive. I'm talking about the molecular identity of the food itself. While we were all distracted by the global pandemic and rising inflation, the confectionery giants were quietly rewriting their recipes. They have been swapping out the most expensive ingredient, cocoa butter, for cheap industrial fillers like palm, shea, and sal fat. They have moved production from Switzerland to Eastern Europe while keeping the price tags premium. They have utilized legal loopholes in Australian food standards to sell you compound confectionery, disguised as chocolate. This isn't just nostalgia talking. This is chemistry. And today, we are going to look at the ingredient labels they hope you never read. We are going to break down the cocoa butter equivalent loophole, the health washing of shrinkflation, and the halo effect marketing that tricks you into buying premium-priced vegetable oil. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which blocks to leave on the shelf and which 3 brands are the last bastions of honesty in the Australian aisle. Let's pull back the wrapper on the great chocolate betrayal. To understand the scam, you first have to understand the science. Real chocolate is defined by one magical ingredient: cocoa butter. It is the fat extracted from the cocoa bean, and it is incredibly expensive. But it's worth it because of a unique physical property. It melts at roughly 34 degrees Celsius. That is just below the temperature of the human body. That is why real chocolate snaps in your hand but melts the second it hits your tongue. It releases flavor cleanly and leaves no residue. But for manufacturers, cocoa butter is a nightmare. It's costly, it's volatile, and if it gets too hot in the Australian summer, it blooms, turning white and chalky. Enter the CBEs, cocoa butter equivalents. These are vegetable fats, usually palm oil, shea, or sal, processed to mimic the physical properties of cocoa butter. They are cheap, they are shelf-stable, and they don't melt as easily in the heat. But they don't melt in your mouth the same way either. They have a higher melting point, which often leaves a waxy, greasy film on the roof of your mouth. When you eat a modern chocolate bar and feel like you have to chew it more, or it feels oily rather than rich, that is the vegetable fat talking. Now that you know what to look for, let's look at the offenders. Number 1 is the global icon that lost its passport, Toblerone. For over 100 years, that triangular bar was the gold standard of duty-free luxury. It was synonymous with Swiss quality. The packaging proudly stated Toblerone of Switzerland and featured the Matterhorn mountain, a symbol of its alpine heritage. You paid a premium price because you believed you were buying superior Swiss milk chocolate, made in Bern with Swiss milk. But the brand's owner, the U.S. corporate giant Mondelez, decided that making chocolate in Switzerland was simply too expensive. So, in late 2023, they moved a massive portion of their production to Bratislava, Slovakia. Now, this triggered a fascinating piece of legislation known as the Swissness Act. Switzerland has strict laws protecting its national brand. You cannot use national symbols like the Swiss cross or the Matterhorn, and you cannot claim a product is Swiss unless a specific percentage of the manufacturing and raw materials come from inside the country. Because they moved to Slovakia to cut costs, Toblerone was legally forced to erase its own identity. Next time you see a bar, look closely. The famous Matterhorn mountain is gone, replaced by a generic geometric summit. The words Toblerone of Switzerland have vanished, replaced by the legally distinct phrase established in Switzerland. It is a subtle change, but a legally damning one. You are now buying a Slovakian-made bar that charges Swiss heritage prices based on a reputation it can no longer legally claim on its label. Mondelez insists the recipe hasn't changed, but consumers across Australia have reported that the new bars feel different, harder, with a less complex flavor profile. You are paying for the brand equity of the Alps, but the economic reality is an industrial hub in Eastern Europe. It is the ultimate disconnect between what the packaging sells and what the supply chain delivers. Number 2 is an Australian national treasure that might be hiding a dirty secret: Arnott's Tim Tams. We all love a Tim Tam slam. It is practically a rite of passage. But have you ever stopped to look closely at the ingredient list of the chocolate coating? This is where the distinction between chocolate and compound gets blurry. In Australia, the Food Standards Code allows a product to be called chocolate, even if it contains a certain percentage of vegetable fats, provided it also has cocoa butter. But many mass-market biscuits push this to the absolute limit. Turn over a pack of Tim Tam Originals or, even worse, the dark or flavored varieties. You won't just see cocoa butter. You will see vegetable oil, palm, shea, sal, listed right alongside and sometimes competing with the cocoa ingredients. Specifically, in many flavored varieties and the darker coatings, manufacturers utilize what is effectively a compound coating. Real chocolate does not need palm oil or shea nut oil to hold it together. Those fats are added for 2 reasons: to stabilize the product so it doesn't melt in the truck on the way to the supermarket, and, crucially, to cut costs. When you bite into that irresistible chocolatey happiness, you are eating a blend of industrial vegetable fats designed to mimic the texture of the real thing. The mouthfeel is often waxy. It doesn't have that sharp snap. For a biscuit that markets itself as Australia's favorite premium treat, relying on palm oil fillers feels like a betrayal of quality. And this matters because of the aftertaste. Real chocolate leaves a lingering cocoa flavor. Vegetable fat blends leave a coating that dulls your taste buds, encouraging you to eat more just to chase the flavor. It is engineered palatability, not culinary quality. Number 3 is the king of shrinkflation: KitKat. Nestlé has turned the art of shrinking products into a business model, and the classic 4-finger bar is their latest victim. In early 2025, confirmed reports hit the Australian market that the standard KitKat bar, the one you grab at the checkout, would shrink from 45 grams down to 42 grams. That might sound small, just 3 grams. But remember, a few years ago, that bar was 50 grams. The price, of course, stayed exactly the same at $2.50, or often higher depending on the retailer. This is a hidden price increase of nearly 7% overnight. But where the scam really hurts is in the share packs and fun-size varieties. Nestlé admitted to reducing these fun-size bars from 17 grams down to 14 grams. That is a massive 17% reduction in a single swoop. They cited rising cocoa and sugar costs, calling it a difficult situation. Gee, but let's be real. Consumers call it a ripoff. The brilliance of shrinkflation, and why it is so insidious, is that it exploits your cognitive blind spots. You notice price changes instantly. If a KitKat went from $2.50 to $3.50, you would pause. You might put it back, but you do not weigh your chocolate bar before you eat it. You trust the visual cues of the wrapper, which stays roughly the same size, perhaps with a little more air inside. By removing 3 grams here and 3 grams there, companies protect their profit margins while eroding the value you receive. It is a breach of the unwritten contract between brand and consumer. You are getting a fraction of a break for the full price. Number 4 is the bar that has been on a diet for 2 decades, the Mars bar. If you grew up in the 90s, the Mars bar was a weapon. It was a hefty 60 grams or more. It felt like a meal. Today, It is a shadow of its former self. The Australian Mars bar has been aggressively shrunk down to 47 grams. That is a reduction of over 20% from its peak size. But what is truly infuriating is the excuse they use. Mars often justifies this by claiming it is for public health, part of a commitment to reduce calorie counts per serving. This is what we call health washing. It is a cynical marketing tactic where a company frames a size reduction, which saves them millions of dollars in raw materials, as a responsible, virtuous choice to help you manage your waistline. If they were truly concerned about public health, they would reformulate the recipe to reduce sugar. They would use higher quality ingredients. Instead, they just sell you less product for the same or higher price. The shrinking size also changes the golden ratio of the bar. A Mars bar is a balance of chocolate, caramel, and nougat. When you shrink the bar, that ratio shifts. The chocolate layer gets thinner. The caramel becomes less substantial. It is no longer the satisfying, chewy experience of your childhood. It is a snack-size bar masquerading as a full serve, charging you full-serve prices. Number 5 is a premium brand that uses a cheap trick, Lindt White Chocolate. Now, this one hurts because Lindt markets itself as the master chocolatier. See, they charge premium prices for superior Swiss quality. And to be fair, for their high-percentage dark chocolate blocks, the 70%, the 85%, that reputation is mostly earned. Those are generally excellent products, but the brand relies on a halo effect. You trust the Lindt name because of the dark chocolate, so you assume the rest of the range is just as pure. Check the label on their white chocolate products, or specifically, the fillings of the famous Lindor balls. You will often see vegetable fats or vegetable oil listed in the ingredients, particularly coconut and palm kernel oil. Real white chocolate is simple. It should be cocoa butter, sugar, and milk solids. That's it. It shouldn't need cheap vegetable fillers. While Lindt claims they use pure cocoa butter for their solid chocolates, the inclusion of vegetable fat fractions in their fillings is a shortcut that premium buyers shouldn't have to accept. Palm kernel oil is used because it has a sharp melting curve. It mimics the cooling effect of coconut oil. It makes the filling feel smooth and melty, but it is a fraction of the price of cocoa butter. When you are paying $6 or $7 for a block or giving a box of Lindor balls as a gift, you are paying for master chocolatier expertise. You are not paying for palm kernel oil that belongs in a budget compound bar. It is a reminder that you have to audit every single item, even from brands you think you trust. You cannot rely on the logo on the front. The truth is always in the fine print on the back. Number 6 is a complex one. It's a brand that claims to be the antidote. Darrell Lea. Daryl Lea made massive headlines in 2020 by declaring their entire range 100% palm oil free. They replaced palm oil with sunflower oil. They marketed this aggressively, creating ads that slammed competitors for destroying habitats. They positioned themselves as the ethical, high-quality Aussie alternative. And let's be clear, this is a good thing. Removing palm oil is a massive win for the environment and for orangutan habitats. We applaud that move. But here is the catch you need to watch for. Palm oil free does not automatically mean pure chocolate. While Daryl Lee removed the controversial palm oil, many of their products, especially the soft center-filled eggs, the Rocklia Road, and the balls, still rely on vegetable oils, now sunflower, to create textures and fillings. The distinction here is subtle. If you buy a Daryl Lee block, you are getting a good product. But if you assume that palm oil-free means no added vegetable fats, you are mistaken. Sunflower oil is still an oil. It is still a filler used to manipulate texture and reduce the amount of expensive cocoa butter needed in fillings. It highlights the complexity of ethical consumption. A brand can fix one major problem, deforestation, while still engaging in standard industrial food processing practices. Daryl Lee is arguably a better choice than many competitors, but don't let the marketing blind you. You are buying a product that prioritizes one specific ethical stance. Just don't mistake that stance for an artisanal, whole food philosophy. It is still factory confectionery relying on oil for structure. So, why is this happening across the board? Why does it feel like every brand is racing to the bottom? The reality is the global cocoa crisis. Due to climate change, aging trees, and disease in West Africa, where the vast majority of the world's cocoa is grown, the price of cocoa beans skyrocketed in 2024 to historic highs. We are talking about prices tripling. Manufacturers are panicking. They have three choices. 1. Raise the price of a chocolate bar to $5. 2. Shrink the bar to the size of a postage stamp. Or 3. Dilute the recipe with cheaper fats. Most of the big players are doing all three. They are shrinking the product, raising the price, and degrading the ingredients simultaneously. They are betting that your addiction to sugar and your nostalgia for the brand is stronger than your ability to notice the drop in quality. But you don't have to accept it. There are alternatives in the Australian aisle that have refused to compromise. If you want to vote with your wallet, here is what you should be putting in your trolley. Alternative 1. Whitaker's. This New Zealand brand is widely considered the gold standard in the supermarket aisle. While Cadbury and others shrunk their family blocks to 180 grams or less, Whitaker's has stubbornly kept their standard dairy milk blocks at a massive 250 grams. But it's not just about size. It's about the bean-to-bar process. Whitaker's roasts their own cocoa beans in their factory in Porirua. They don't just buy pre-made cocoa liquor like many other brands. They control the roast, the conch, and the blend. Crucially, they refuse to use palm oil in their dairy milk blocks. When you pick up a slab of Whitaker's, it feels heavy. It is dense. It snaps with a loud crack. That is the sound of cocoa butter structure. Because they control the manufacturing locally, they maintain a consistency that the multinational giants, who outsource to different factories across the globe, simply cannot match. When you buy Whitaker's, you aren't guessing about the fat content. You are getting chocolate. Alternative 2. The surprise contender. Aldi's Chaussure and Moser Roth. It sounds counterintuitive. How can the budget supermarket have better chocolate than the premium brands? Aldi's house brands, specifically Moser Roth, are often manufactured in Germany. Germany has very strict chocolate regulations. If you look at the Moser Roth dark chocolate bars, the ones that come in the small individually wrapped packs, they are often fair trade certified and use simple ingredients: cocoa mass, cocoa butter, sugar, vanilla. You will rarely find palm oil fillers in their dark chocolate range. Aldi's business model relies on a smaller range of high-turnover products. They don't spend millions on TV ads featuring celebrities. They don't pay for slotting fees to be at eye level. This allows them to source higher quality goods at lower prices. It is a utilitarian approach to chocolate that often delivers a superior tasting experience for half the price of a Lindt or Cadbury block. Alternative 3. Hayes Chocolates. If you want to step out of the supermarket and experience what chocolate used to be, you have to go to Hayes. Yes, it is expensive. You are not going to buy this every week, but Hayes is one of the very few bean-to-bar producers left in Australia. They import raw beans, roast them in Adelaide, and craft the chocolate from scratch. They do not shrink their blocks. They do not swap out cocoa butter for palm oil. They charge a real price for a real product. When you eat a Hayes frog or a speckled egg, notice the mouthfeel. It is cool, smooth, and vanishes instantly. There is no waxy residue. This is the benchmark. It serves as a reminder of what the other brands are pretending to be. The chocolate aisle has become a minefield of deception. Brands are trading on the memories of what their products used to be, while selling you a smaller, cheaper, oilier version today. Don't pay premium prices for compound fats and shrinking bars. Read the label. If you see vegetable fat listed before cocoa butter, put it back. If the block feels suspiciously light, put it back. If the packaging says established in Switzerland instead of product of Switzerland, put it back. We have the power to change this. If we stop buying the shrinking oil-filled bars, they will stop making them. But if we keep swiping them at the checkout out of habit, the bars will get smaller, and the ingredient lists will get longer. If this video saved you from a bad buy, hit like and subscribe. We are exposing the truth about Aussie food every single week. And tell me in the comments, which chocolate bar has disappointed you the most lately? Is it the wagon wheel that feels like a toy? The cherry ripe that seems smaller than your thumb? I bet it's one of the ones on this list. Your palate isn't lying to you. The industry is. Trust your taste buds, check the ingredients, and vote with your wallet. Because we deserve real cocoa butter and honest sizing. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next aisle.